They're going to take your land away, and you're going to like it. All that's coming up on today's Hot Zone.
This is the Hot Zone. Engaging with the news in a whole new way, international war correspondent Chuck Holton brings insight into areas of crisis and lets you help those affected.
Hey folks, Chuck Holton here. Thanks for watching the podcast. Today I am kind of out in the countryside in South Africa. As a matter of fact, a while ago I saw a monkey standing in the middle of the road. I don't know if he was collecting tolls or what, but I just blew on past him. So I'm out here because I'm making this story about the white farmers being murdered in South Africa, and that is a thing, definitely a thing. But I'm also looking into this concept of expropriation without compensation that the government of South Africa has been talking about for some time. What they've been saying is that they're going to redistribute the land because, you know, kind of like Barack Obama, you didn't earn that. And because you didn't earn that, they believe they can take it away. They've passed the law that gives the government the right to take away the farmers' land without compensating them. When they do that, then they're going to redistribute the land to people who deserve it more somehow. The government has over 42 million acres of land that's publicly owned. That means that it could give every South African family over 2.5 acres of their own property if it wanted to. But instead, it's been pushing this idea of expropriation without compensation. That means taking land away from the farmers who have title and deed to their land, some of whom have been on their property for generations. And that's causing some serious unrest. One of the problems is that people have decided, since that's supposed to happen at some point, that they're going to go and claim their land right away. And that means they're moving in onto people's property and squatting, trespassing essentially, and setting up houses and even whole villages on people's farms. This squatters camp is in the countryside west of Pretoria, and it's inhabited by several thousand people at least. It's a mixture of people from Mozambique and here in South Africa and other places. And most of these people either work in the farms around here or they don't work at all. And when they don't work at all, many of the women that I talked to said that they get a stipend from the government because they have babies. So they live on that stipend. Obviously, they're not living real high on that stipend, but because of that, more and more people are coming into South Africa in order to take advantage of the social welfare that doesn't exist in their countries. So there's a group called AfriForum that has a security team who helps these farmers and ranchers get their land back from the squatters.
It's Ian Cameron, and I'm the head of community safety at AfriForum. So my responsibility as the head of community safety in AfriForum is to establish community safety networks across the country. Currently we've got just about 140 community safety networks in South Africa with just under 10,000 volunteers that are involved. And we've got a national team that not only coordinates these structures on ground level but also trains them. It's crucial for us to act within the framework of the law, and then any disadvantaged or a specific community that has a certain problem can approach us, and then we see how we can assist them. Obviously, with the big farm attack issue in South Africa, we've been approached by a lot of rural communities, but it's interesting because the majority of our community safety initiatives are in urban areas. And the interesting part is that we're getting approached even more by regions like this, where it's semi-urban and with vast rural areas surrounding, where they've got a problem with civil unrest. And this civil unrest has not only, it leaves people filled with fear, but it also gives a sense of doubt for the future for them, and the reason being that their infrastructure and their businesses and so on are being targeted by these protesters.
So explain to me the issues that are brought to bear on these communities because of illegal immigration?
Well, I mean, let's take a community like this as an example. South Africa has a huge struggling Department of Health. So just out of a health perspective, now you've got literally millions of illegal immigrants coming across our borders. Our borders aren't protected at all. Just 2 weeks ago, our Minister of Defence admitted that the South African National Defence Force is actually worth nothing at the moment. They're completely bankrupt. They don't have not only training, but they also don't have the necessary resources to even defend the country in any way. So our borders are open, and these people are flooding in from places like Mozambique, Zimbabwe, Lesotho, Swaziland, and so forth. I think the risk is that if you take the health system, now these people are clogging up the health system, and local people that can't afford private health care are now, being left behind because of illegal elements coming into the country. Obviously, as you would know, out of a US perspective, that would increase crime as well, and it increases poverty. So that the general socio-economic conditions in the country is on a decline. We've got the lowest unemployment rate that we've had in years. I think it's the lowest that it's been in 9 years, and it's getting worse. When we look at violence in the country and you look at who are the people that are involved in violent crime, it's interesting to see that per region you can see different nationalities being involved. Provinces like Limpopo or Gauteng or Mpumalanga, you often see that Mozambicans, Zimbabweans with South Africans act in gangs or syndicates of some sort. In places like the Free State, you see South Africans and Lesotho nationals. In places like Northern KwaZulu-Natal, you see Swazi nationals. So there's a really bigger dynamic going on than just saying this is a South African problem. That we can keep the public informed about what the reality is, because I think the idea that the South African president creates when he, for example, spoke in New York at a UN function last year, is that everything's great. There are no farm attacks, there are no land grabs in South Africa, when we know it's an utter lie.